So let me tell you now about this story. Oh, are you listening? 'Cause it's not boring.
A few weeks ago, back in February, I made a video on the necessity of hotel quarantines in Canada for those traveling back to Canada. And today, we started seeing the results. According to the study that was reported by City TV, in Canada between February 22nd and March 4th, that's only 1.5 weeks, there have been over 20,000 travelers. Okay, 20,000 people returning back to Canada or coming to Canada that will have to undergo this hotel quarantine process. And what they found, was that there was at least over 260 cases of positive COVID during the 3-day hotel quarantine period. And some are using this statistic, which is about 1.2% of all travelers returning back to Canada. So some are using these statistics to argue whether this hotel quarantine is necessary, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of fruit when only 1.2% of those tested have become positive. And to them, I say, what are these people thinking? What is their IQ level? Is something not functioning in their head? The fact that, number one, 20,000 travelers in less than 2 weeks is pretty much not acceptable, especially when there is travel advisory for those that you should not be traveling if you don't have to. We don't need people importing foreign COVID virus strains into our population. We don't need variants from all over the world competing for dominance on our homeland. But let's get back to the point. 1.2%. That means those who have to undergo hotel quarantine has a 98.8% chance of testing negative. But the problem is, the virus grows exponentially. And not only that, the variants that we are more concerned about, those that are coming from other countries, grow even faster than the previous original COVID-19 strain. In fact, I wouldn't even know if we had the original COVID-19 strain. From what is on the news and what's being reported, I think we got most of our COVID strain probably from Europe, because we didn't impose travel restrictions early enough. But regardless, 1.2% to me sounds like an encouragement that our quarantine is working. Now think about this. For those of you who are saying it's only 1.2%, right? But these people had to get tested before even allowed to be board. These people had to be tested before they were even allowed to board the plane to Canada, which means it should technically be 0%. And if it was 0%, we can then argue the legitimacy of this hotel quarantine policy. But the fact that there are positive cases means that it is necessary. And the crappy part is, the viruses can take a while to show up in a person. And we are only quarantining people for 3 days, when we know for a fact, based on the scientific evidence, it can take up to 21 days to show symptoms, with the average being within the first 2 weeks. But I'm guessing that the government on their end had decided, you know what, we can't quarantine people and force them to pay these hotel fees for 14 to 21 days. And hence they opted for a compromise. Just a 3-day period until they can get their COVID-19 second test results, which, if everything worked perfectly fine, should have been 0. So obviously, this is an argument for the continuation of the hotel quarantine. In fact, it might even be an argument to extend the period. Because if we extend it to 14 days, we might not get 1.2% positivity rate. We might actually get 5%. And I know, people have talked to me, have reached out to me and said, hey Charlie, the hotel quarantine is a joke. These hotels cannot accommodate all these travelers safely. And there are people reporting rape cases or not being fed food. But this is not a product of the policy. This is a product of poor execution by our tourism industry, which has been crumpled for so long. And then they can use this hotel quarantine to boost up their revenue. But what do? They F it up. And then people who are putting blame on the government is that you should have pre-approved these hotels. Make sure they meet the standards. And probably at the time of licensing and approving these hotels, they might have met the standards for a fraction of the people. But the volume have increased. And it was up to the hotel chains to manage that volume. And perhaps the quarantine wasn't fully thought out. Most countries that have done the hotel quarantine, in order to make it manageable, put a quota on the number of people who could enter their country. And other countries that have tried hotel quarantines have had their ups and downs. And I'm just surprised that we, being one of those last countries to implement the hotel quarantine, did not study these other examples and try to learn from them. So those who say that this hotel quarantine is hogwash and that you have over a 98% chance of testing negative, we gotta take into consideration 1%, 200 people is way too much. It should technically be 0. And obviously, when left to their own devices, Canadians, not all Canadians, but some Canadians, do not do the quarantine properly. If they did, we wouldn't have to worry about all these foreign COVID strains from the UK, from South Africa, from Brazil, probably some from the US. But they're all here, and they're all competing. And to be honest, I think because of our poor management here in the West, we're going to see a third wave. It's inevitable. We're not vaccinating people fast enough. And even if we do have everyone vaccinated, the number of COVID strains out there is enormous. And we've only heard about a few strains because there's only these few mutations that are causing the virus to be more contagious and deadly. But as more and more people become infected, the chances of mutation increases. And the increased likelihood of increase in infectivity and mortality. So brace for a cold storm ahead. See you next time.